Ambassador Zix, 477, stood before the Galactic Council's crystalline podium, his three hearts beating in an irregular rhythm that would have alarmed any medical scanner within a parsec. The amphitheater, carved from a single asteroid and suspended in the void between star systems, held representatives from over 1,000 civilizations. Yet today, for the first time in his diplomatic career, spanning 4 centuries, Zix 477 felt genuine terror. "Honored delegates," he began, his voice resonating through the universal translators embedded in each seat. "I come before you not as an ambassador of peace, but as a harbinger of warning. The species we know as humans must never under any circumstances be pushed beyond their breaking point." A ripple of confusion passed through the assembly. The crystalline hierarchs chimed their skepticism, while the gaseous beings of Nebula Prime shifted their forms in what could only be interpreted as dismissive amusement. Humans, after all, were considered one of the younger, more primitive species in the galaxy, barely capable of interstellar travel, lacking in advanced weaponry, and possessing lifespans so brief they seemed almost ephemeral. Zix, 477, had thought the same thing 6 months ago. 3 solar cycles passed, he continued. The Dominion of Exereth decided to claim the human system of Sol for its strategic position. Standard procedure, you understand. A species of their technological level should have surrendered within days, perhaps offering token resistance, before accepting integration into our empire. The Exerathian delegate, a towering figure encased in biomechanical armor, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His species had conquered over 200 worlds using the same methodical approach: superior technology, overwhelming force, and calculated intimidation. It had never failed. The initial assault proceeded as expected, Zix 477 said, calling up a holographic display that showed the Sol system. "Our fleet of 500 vessels approached Earth, their primary world. We broadcasted the standard surrender demands. The human governments responded with defiance." He paused, remembering the intercepted transmissions that had puzzled Zerathian command. The humans hadn't pleaded for mercy or attempted negotiation. Instead, their leaders had issued what could only be described as threats impossible, laughable threats from a species that had barely mastered fusion power. The Exerathians landed occupation forces on major population centers. Resistance was expected, of course, but something extraordinary happened. The humans didn't just fight back, they transformed. The holographic display shifted to show surface battles. At first, the scenes appeared routine: Exerathian forces, equipped with energy weapons and powered armor, advancing against human defenders armed with primitive projectile weapons and explosive devices. But as the timeline progressed, something changed. They began to exhibit what we now understand to be a psychological phenomenon unique to their species. When faced with complete extinction, when all hope appears lost, humans don't surrender. They don't despair. They become something else entirely. Zix 477's hands trembled as he manipulated the display. The later battle footage showed humans performing impossible feats, soldiers continuing to fight with injuries that should have been fatal, civilians fashioning weapons from household items with deadly efficiency, and most disturbing of all, the complete absence of fear in their faces as they charged against overwhelming odds. Within weeks, our occupation forces reported something we had never encountered. Humans were adapting faster than our computers could model. They learned our technology by dismantling our fallen warriors. They turned our own weapons against us. But more than that, they began to fight with a ferocity that defied all logic. The crystalline hierarchs ceased their chiming. The gaseous beings of Nebula Prime solidified into rigid, attentive forms. Every delegate in the amphitheater was now listening with the focused intensity of prey animals sensing a predator. The turning point came when they discovered our fleet's location beyond their moon. A single human spacecraft, cobbled together from salvaged Exarathian technology and their own primitive materials, somehow penetrated our defensive perimeter. We later learned it was crewed by volunteers. A suicide mission. The display showed grainy footage from Zarathian security cameras, humans in makeshift spacesuits, their faces visible through crude helmets, systematically destroying critical systems throughout the flagship. They moved with purpose, never hesitating, never showing mercy to the Exarathian crew members they encountered. But that wasn't the most terrifying part. Zix 477 continued. As our ships fell, as our ground forces retreated, as our empire's military might crumbled before creatures who should have been extinct, we intercepted their communications. They weren't celebrating. They weren't even satisfied. They were planning. He called up a new display, star charts showing human expansion routes, theoretical weapon designs, and most chilling of all, lists of Exarathian colonies and their defensive capabilities. In the span of mere months, humans had not only repelled an invasion, but had reverse-engineered our technology, developed improvements we hadn't thought possible, and were preparing for interstellar war. They had gone from a single world species to a galactic threat. The Exarathian delegate finally spoke, his voice carrying the weight of a civilization's trauma. They didn't just defeat us. They hunted us. Across star systems, through asteroid fields, into nebulae we thought were impenetrable. They showed no mercy, no fatigue, no fear. Our warriors beings bred for conquest, across 100 generations, began taking their own lives, rather than face capture by humans. Zix 477 nodded grimly. The war ended only when the Exarathian Emperor personally traveled to Earth to offer unconditional surrender. The humans accepted, but their terms. He paused, his alien features contorting in what might have been disbelief. They demanded the complete dismantling of the Exarathian military, reparations to be paid over the next millennium, and the right to establish monitoring stations throughout Exarathian space. And the Exarathians agreed? Asked a delegate from the peaceful collective of Andromeda. They had no choice, Zix 477 replied. By that point, human fleets were already positioned around every major Exarathian world. The humans had gone from defending their single planet to occupying an empire that spanned dozens of star systems, all in less than one standard year. The amphitheater fell silent. The magnitude of what they were hearing began to sink in. A species they had dismissed as inconsequential had not only survived an extinction-level threat, but had emerged stronger, more dangerous, and more capable than anyone had imagined possible. This is why I stand before you today, Zix 477 concluded. Humans possess something we have never encountered in all our explorations of the galaxy, the ability to transcend their limitations when faced with absolute destruction. They become something beyond their normal parameters, something that can challenge forces far beyond their apparent capabilities. He gestured to the star charts one final time. The humans have returned to their world. They've honored their agreements with the Exarathians. They appear to have resumed their normal activities. But we now know the truth. When humans go berserk, when they're pushed beyond all rational limits, even species we consider gods would struggle to contain them. The warning hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Across the amphitheater, delegates from civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia began to understand that the cosmic balance had shifted. Earth, that small blue world, in an unremarkable solar system, had become the most dangerous place in the known universe. Not because of its weapons, not because of its technology, but because of what its inhabitants could become when they had nothing left to lose.